an email went around saying perhaps we should go back and have a look at all the other prosecutions. And then Paula Vennells exchanged emails with her PR chief, Mark Davis, where he took everybody else off the courtesy copy list and emailed her individually and said, basically, look, if we do this, if we go back and look at everything, this is going to be front page news on every newspaper, and this will be terrible for the reputation of the post office. I don't think this is a good idea. And Paula Vennells wrote back to him saying, that's good advice. I will listen to that. If at that moment she had turned to him and said, no, actually, I think the right thing to do is to go back and look at all these prosecutions, then yes, I think at that point we could have got to the point where we are now 10 years ago.
Former post office boss Paula Vennells has been told she is in La La Land by a lawyer representing sub-postmasters at the Horizon IT inquiry. She's been giving evidence for the third day, where today she was challenged by Edward Henry KC.
I suggest to you that you still continue to live in a cloud of denial, and it persists even to today because you have given in 750 odd pages a craven self-serving account, haven't you? I didn't know, nobody told me, I can't remember, I wasn't shown this, I relied on the lawyers.
I have tried to do this to the very best of my ability. I have taken, as I hope the inquiry has seen, all of the questions I've been asked. I have answered them honestly, no matter how difficult or how embarrassing or how wrong I was at the time. I don't believe I could have worked harder for this.
That was Paula Vennells giving evidence today. But it comes on the same day that hundreds of sub-postmasters in England, Wales and Northern Ireland will learn their convictions will be quashed as the Post Office Horizon Systems Offences Bill gains royal assent in the wash-up of Parliament following the calling of the election. The Scottish Parliament is set to pass its own equivalent bill. Well, this has been a scandal long in the making and long in the search for justice. Computer Weekly has been investigating the Post Office scandal since 2008 and has been dogged in its determination to keep telling the story. Bryan Glick is editor-in-chief at Computer Weekly and joins me now. Hi, Bryan.
Hello, Matt. How are you?
Very good. Very good. The third day of Paula Vennells giving evidence. Has it been tougher today because she's facing lawyers representing the sub-postmasters who've had such an awful time as a result of this?
Yeah, I think everybody knew today that from the roll call of lawyers that she's getting acting for the victims, they were going to really go for the jugular today. We've seen them do that with previous witnesses. They have taken a much firmer, more aggressive approach with senior post office executives. So I'm sure she would have been aware that was going to happen today. But I think what they're really doing is expressing the emotions of the victims themselves here. I was lucky enough on Wednesday, on the first day of her evidence, I spent the day with a group of sub-postmasters all watching it together. I was asking them at the start of the day, what are you expecting? What do you hope? And they were all being very conciliatory. They were saying, they wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. They wanted her to come out and, in their eyes, tell the truth, take some responsibility, show some contrition. By the end of the day, there was just a lot of anger in the room. And I think that's what the lawyers that we're seeing today are reflecting. The victims themselves have listened to Paula Vennells for 2.5 days now, and they still don't feel that she really gets what she's done.
I suppose that's the thing, isn't it? Her defence, obviously it's 3 days of evidence and 755 pages of statement. It essentially boils down to terrible business, but I didn't know, nobody told me.
Yeah, she was clearly wearing post office branded blinkers for most of this time. What we've seen is a picture of almost a clique of senior executives at the top of the post office whose mindset was that these sub-postmasters and all these media, people like us at Computer Weekly asking questions, were a minor thing. It was an irritation. They just wanted everybody to go away. And gradually it built and built. MPs started getting involved. The BBC started looking at it. Private Eye started looking at it. Yet they still couldn't shake themselves from this mindset that this is nothing, and we really need to make it go away. They seem to be, and Paula Vennells in particular, seems to have been incapable of just taking a step back, looking at everything that was going on, join the dots, and thinking, wow, actually, this is enormous.
And Bryan, from what you've heard during the inquiry in general, but also from Paula Vennells, there was a moment, a sliding doors moment, where she could have done something differently and the years that followed would have panned out differently? Or is it the case that it was just, decision on decision on decision, which meant it took so long to come out? Was there a point at which she could have stopped and said, okay, enough?
I think probably there were a number of points where she could have stopped and said enough if she'd really looked at the totality of what was going on. We did see a point in her evidence yesterday which perhaps is as close to that sort of sliding doors moment as we've come, which was when there were discussions off the back of the investigation that was done by Second Sight, the forensic accountants who'd been brought in to look at Horizon, that showed that there were bugs, that showed that there were likely to have been miscarriages of justice, that showed that the expert witness that the post office had relied on from Fujitsu was unreliable, and an email went around saying perhaps we should go back and have a look at all the other prosecutions. And then Paula Vennells exchanged emails with her PR chief, Mark Davis, where he took everybody else off the courtesy copy list and emailed her individually and said, basically, look, if we do this, if we go back and look at everything, this is going to be front page news on every newspaper, and this will be terrible for the reputation of the post office. I don't think this is a good idea. And Paula Vennells wrote back to him saying, that's good advice. I will listen to that. If at that moment she had turned to him and said, no, actually, I think the right thing to do is to go back and look at all these prosecutions, then yes, I think at that point we could have got to the point where we are now 10 years ago.
Well, such a depressing thought there, but Bryan, really appreciate your time today. Bryan Glick, editor-in-chief at Computer Weekly, which has done so much to report out this story when others weren't. Appreciate your time today, Bryan. We'll keep across. Paula Vennells still giving evidence now